Undernourished little girl begs rich man for food. What he does next changes her life. Michael Thompson was leaving Bella Italia after yet another business dinner when he felt a tug on his suit jacket. His first reaction was irritation, assuming it was some street vendor or beggar he usually ignored with ease. But when he looked down, he saw a small girl, no more than 7 years old, with big brown eyes filled with tears. Her clothes were dirty, her hair unkempt, and her thin frame was evident even in the simple dress she wore. "Please, sir, I'm so hungry," she said in a tiny voice, barely a whisper. "Do you have any food left?" Michael stopped in the middle of the sidewalk. At 38, he had built a real estate empire in New York City from nothing, and one of the lessons he'd learned was not to get involved with lost causes. Time was money, and sentimentality didn't pay the bills. But there was something in those brown eyes that made him hesitate. A strange familiarity he couldn't explain. For a moment, it was like looking into a mirror of the past at a time he'd rather forget. "Where are your parents?" he asked, glancing around. "I don't have a dad, just my grandma, but she's sick and can't work. We haven't eaten in 3 days." Tears began rolling down her thin little face. Michael felt a tightness in his chest he hadn't felt in years. Against all his businessman instincts, he heard himself say, "Wait here." He went back into the restaurant and ordered a full meal to go. The waiter gave him a strange look, but didn't question it. 20 minutes later, Michael returned with a heavy bag full of food. The girl was exactly where he'd left her, sitting on the curb, legs swinging. When she saw the bag, her eyes lit up in a way that made Michael question all his priorities. "What's your name?" he asked, handing her the food. "Emma," she answered, already opening the first container. "Thank you, sir. The cleaning lady from that building said you're a good person." Michael watched silently as the girl devoured the food with a desperation that broke his heart. It was clear she really hadn't eaten in days. Every bite was savored as if it were her last meal. "Where do you live, Emma?" She pointed to a dark alley between 2 office buildings. "Over there, with Grandma Ruth. But she's really sick. Yesterday, she couldn't even get out of bed." Something inside Michael stirred. Maybe it was the memory of his own difficult childhood, or maybe it was simply the humanity he'd buried under years of ruthless business. Whatever the reason, he heard himself say, "Take me there." Emma looked up at him in surprise, still chewing. "You want to meet my grandma?" "I want to help." The alley was even worse than Michael had imagined. Between 2 office buildings stood a makeshift shack of wood and old roofing tiles. The smell of dampness and mold was strong, and when Emma pushed open the wooden door that didn't close properly, Michael saw a sight that shocked him. An elderly woman lay on a mattress on the floor, covered by a thin, worn-out blanket. Even in the dim light, it was clear she was very ill. She breathed with difficulty and seemed to have a high fever. "Grandma, I brought a man who gave me food," Emma said, kneeling beside the makeshift bed. The woman opened her eyes with effort, and when she saw Michael standing in the doorway, she had a strange reaction. Her eyes widened, and she tried to sit up, murmuring something inaudible. "I'm sorry, sir. Sorry. Didn't mean to bother," she managed to say weakly. Michael stepped closer, puzzled. There was something familiar about this woman too, but he couldn't place it. "You need a doctor," he said, noticing her labored breathing. "We don't have money," Emma replied softly. "Grandma used to work for a family, but she lost her job when she got sick. How long have you lived here?" 2 months. We came from Buffalo. Grandma said we had to come to New York City to take care of some things, but then she got sick and we couldn't go back." Michael looked around the shack. There was no furniture except for a mattress. A few clothes hung on nails in the wooden walls, and a small table with scraps of spoiled food. The smell was almost unbearable. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now, back to the story. "I'll call a doctor," Michael said, pulling out his phone. "You don't have to, sir," Grandma Ruth managed to say a little louder. "We'll manage." "No, you won't. You're very sick." He called his personal doctor, Dr. William, who at first hesitated to make a house call to a place like that. But Michael insisted, and an hour later, the doctor arrived with a medical bag. The diagnosis was immediate: severe pneumonia. Dr. William pulled Michael aside and whispered, "She needs to be hospitalized right away. Without proper treatment, she won't last long. Then admit her. Michael, are you sure? This will cost a fortune. And these people, well, you don't even know them." Michael looked at Emma, who was holding her grandmother's hand with a worry no 7-year-old should carry. "I'm sure." The trip to the hospital was tense. Grandma Ruth was semi-conscious, delirious with fever. During the ambulance ride, she murmured words that sent a chill down Michael's spine. "Michael. The boy Michael. I'm sorry, Mrs. Elizabeth, I didn't mean to." Dr. William glanced at him curiously, but Michael was frozen. How did this woman know his name? And who was Mrs. Elizabeth? At the hospital, while Grandma Ruth was admitted to the ICU, Michael stayed in the waiting room with Emma. The girl was scared, clinging to his leg as if he were her only safety in the world. "Is she going to be okay?" Emma asked, her eyes red from crying. "The doctors will take care of her," Michael replied, surprised by the tenderness in his own voice. "You're really kind. Grandma always said there are good people in the world, but I'd never met one before." Those simple words hit Michael like a punch to the gut. When was the last time someone had called him kind? When was the last time he had done something truly good, without expecting anything in return? As they waited for news about Grandma Ruth, Michael learned more about Emma. She wasn't enrolled in school, but she knew how to read because her grandmother had taught her using old newspapers they found on the street. The girl showed sharp intelligence, asking questions about the hospital, the doctors, and the world around her. "Do you have kids?" she asked at one point. "No." "Why not?" It was a simple child's question, but it touched wounds Michael preferred to keep closed. He had been married to Victoria for 5 years, a woman from a wealthy family he'd met at a social event. Their marriage was more a business arrangement than true love, and children had never been a priority for either of them. "Never thought about it," he lied. "I wish I had a dad," Emma said, hugging a worn-out cloth doll she'd brought in her small backpack. "Grandma tells stories about my grandpa, but he was already old when I was born." "What about your parents?" "Grandma doesn't like to talk about them. It makes her sad. All I know is my mum was her daughter, but something bad happened and she went away." Michael felt a lump in his throat. That girl had lost far more than any child should ever lose, yet she still held on to a sweetness and hope he had lost decades ago. 3 hours later, Dr. William came with news. Grandma Ruth was stable but would need to stay hospitalized for at least a week. The treatment would be expensive and intensive. "And the girl?" Michael asked. "She can't stay alone in that place." "Well, technically we should contact Child Protective Services." "No," Michael said quickly. "She stays with me." Dr. William looked surprised but didn't question it. After all, Michael Thompson was one of the wealthiest men in New York City. If he wanted to take care of a child for a few days, that was his business. Michael took Emma to his home in Scarsdale, a mansion with 8 bedrooms, a pool, and a garden the size of a football field. During the car ride, the girl stayed silent, staring out the window with wide eyes. "Wow, those buildings are huge," she murmured as they passed through the business district. "Some of them are mine," Michael said without thinking, then regretted it. He didn't want her to see him as someone too important to care about her, but Emma just smiled. "You must be really smart to own buildings." When they arrived home, Victoria was in the living room, sipping wine and scrolling through her phone. She looked up when she heard the door open, and her eyes widened as she saw Michael walk in with a dirty, ragged child. "Michael, what the hell is this?" "This is Emma. She's staying with us for a few days." Victoria stood up, clearly furious. "Have you lost your mind? Who is this girl? Where did you even find her?" "It's a long story. Her grandmother is in the hospital and she has nowhere else to go." "Since when is that our problem?" "Michael, you can't just bring any random child off the street into our home." Emma hid behind Michael, frightened by Victoria's sharp tone. Michael felt anger rising inside him, anger he hadn't felt in a long time. She's not just any child. She's a girl who needs help. There are institutions for that, Michael. Orphanages, shelters. She's not an orphan. She has a grandmother who's sick. Then leave her with her relatives. There are no other relatives. Victoria looked at Emma with obvious disgust. Just look at her. She's filthy, smells awful, probably full of diseases. I don't want this thing in my house. It's our house, Michael said through clenched teeth. And she stays. Victoria glared at him with a coldness he knew well. Fine, Michael, but you deal with her. I won't lift a finger. She stomped up the stairs, leaving Michael alone with Emma in the living room. The girl was visibly shaken. She doesn't like me, Emma whispered. Don't mind her. Come on, I'll show you where you'll sleep. Michael led Emma to one of the guest rooms, a space bigger than the entire shack she had lived in. The girl stepped in slowly, touching the furniture as if it were made of crystal. Can I really sleep here? She asked, staring at the queen-sized bed. Of course, and tomorrow we'll buy you some new clothes. You don't have to, sir. Grandma always said we shouldn't take too much from others, that we have to manage on our own. Your grandma is right most of the time, but sometimes it's important to accept help too. Emma nodded, still exploring the room. When she saw the private bathroom, her eyes lit up. There's a bathtub. Do you want to take a bath? Can I really? Michael laughed, the first real laugh he'd had in months. Of course you can. While Emma bathed, Michael called the hospital for updates on Grandma Ruth. She was stable but still unconscious. The doctors said it would be a slow recovery. When Emma stepped out of the shower, wrapped in a fluffy robe that was too big for her, Michael felt a strange emotion. The girl looked completely different when clean. Her brown hair shone, and her skin, though still very thin, had a healthy glow. I'm hungry, she said timidly. Let's have dinner. Michael took her to the kitchen, where the housekeeper, Mrs. Jenkins, was preparing dinner. The woman, around 50, looked at Emma with curiosity but without judgment. Mrs. Jenkins, this is Emma. She'll be staying with us for a few days. Could you prepare a plate for her? Of course, Mr. Michael. Hello, sweetheart. What do you like to eat? Anything, Emma replied quickly. I'll eat anything. Mrs. Jenkins smiled tenderly. How about some pasta with tomato sauce and a hamburger? Emma's eyes lit up. Wow, really? During dinner, Michael watched fascinated as Emma behaved. She ate slowly, savoring every bite, and always asked if she could have more before serving herself. It was clear she had been raised with good manners despite the difficult circumstances. Grandma always says we should be grateful for food and never waste anything, she explained when Michael commented on her table manners. Your grandmother is a wise woman. She knows so many things. She taught me to read with newspapers, to do math, to sew. She says knowledge is the only thing no one can take from us. Michael nodded, impressed by the wisdom of this 7-year-old. After dinner, he took her to the TV room. Emma had never seen such a big television and was mesmerized by the cartoons. Michael sat beside her on the couch and, without realizing it, relaxed for the first time in months. Mr. Michael, Emma said during a commercial, you can just call me Michael. Michael, why did you help me? I didn't know you and you didn't know me. It was a tough question, and Michael wasn't sure of the answer. Sometimes we do things because it's the right thing to do. My grandma always said there are good people in the world, even when it seems like there aren't. I think you're one of them. Michael felt a tightness in his chest. It had been so long since anyone saw him as a good person that he'd forgotten he could be. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. The next morning, Michael woke up early to check on Emma. He found her already awake, sitting on the bed looking out the window. Good morning, he said. Did you sleep well? Better than ever in my life, she replied with a smile. This bed is softer than a cloud. Michael laughed. Come on, let's have breakfast and then go to the hospital to see your grandma. During breakfast, Victoria appeared in the kitchen, already dressed to go out. She completely ignored Emma and spoke only to Michael. I'm having lunch with my mother today, and tonight we have the Andersons' dinner. I hope you've resolved this situation by then. The situation has a name. It's Emma. Victoria gave him a cold look. I don't care what her name is, Michael. I just want her out of my house. After Victoria left, Emma asked quietly, Is she your wife? Yes. She doesn't seem to like you very much. The innocent observation from a 7-year-old hit Michael like a slap. It was true. Victoria didn't like him, and he didn't like her. Their marriage was an elegant farce, maintained for social and financial convenience. Adult relationships are complicated, he said, unsure how to explain it better. Grandma always says that when you truly care about someone, you take care of them, protect them, and are happy when they're happy. Your wife doesn't seem to do any of that. Once again, Emma's simple wisdom left Michael speechless. At the hospital, Grandma Ruth was awake but still very weak. When she saw Michael Thompson and Emma entering the room, her eyes filled with tears. Lord, how can I thank you? She said in a hoarse voice. No need to thank me. How are you feeling? Better. The doctors say I'll recover. Emma ran to the bed and hugged her grandmother gently. Grandma, I slept in a huge bed, and I took a bath in a bathtub, and I ate a hamburger. Grandma Ruth smiled, but Michael noticed something odd in her eyes as she looked at him. It was as if she recognized him, but was trying to hide it. Grandma, Michael is really nice. He paid for the hospital and let me stay at his house. Michael? Grandma repeated the name, and her expression grew even stranger. Yes, my name is Michael Thompson. The woman visibly paled. Thompson, she whispered. Do you know the family? Grandma Ruth quickly shook her head. No. I just thought it was a pretty name. But Michael could tell she was lying. There was something she wasn't saying, something important. He decided not to press the matter for now, but promised himself he'd uncover the truth. Over the following days, a routine settled in. Michael went to work in the morning, had lunch at home with Emma, returned to work in the afternoon, and then went with her to the hospital to visit Grandma. At night, they had dinner together and watched TV. Victoria practically vanished from the house, making up social engagements every day. When she was around, she completely ignored Emma and treated Michael with icy indifference. But Michael found he didn't care. For the first time in years, he was genuinely happy. Emma brought a lightness to his life that he hadn't realized he was missing. The girl asked questions about everything, laughed easily, and showed such sincere gratitude for small things that it made Michael rethink all his priorities. Michael, she said one night as they watched a movie in the living room. When Grandma gets better and we go back to our house, will you come visit us? The question hit Michael like a bullet. He'd avoided thinking about what would happen when Grandma Ruth recovered. The idea of Emma leaving his life was too painful to consider. Of course I will, he said, but inside, he was already planning something different. On the 5th day, Dr. William called with troubling news. Grandma Ruth had developed complications. Her blood pressure was unstable, and she'd need to stay hospitalized longer. When Michael told Emma, the girl cried for the first time since arriving at his house. She'll be okay, right? She asked between sobs. The doctors are doing everything they can, Michael reassured her, feeling helpless. That night, Emma had nightmares. Michael heard her crying in her room and went to check on her. He found her sitting on the bed, trembling. I dreamed Grandma was gone and I was all alone, she said. Michael sat on the edge of the bed. That won't happen. Your grandma is strong. But what if it does? I don't have anyone else. You have me. The words came out before Michael could think them through, but the moment he said them, he knew they were true. That little girl had become the most important thing in his life in just 5 days. Emma looked at him with tear-filled eyes. Really? Really? She threw herself into his arms and Michael held her tight, feeling an emotion he'd never experienced before. It was a paternal love, protective, unconditional. The next day, Victoria confronted Michael in his home office. Enough, Michael. This charade has to end. What charade? You pretending to be that girl's father. It's getting ridiculous. I'm not pretending. I'm taking care of a child who needs help. Why? What's in it for you? What benefit are you getting? Michael looked at her, realizing Victoria truly didn't understand. For her, every action had to have a calculated benefit. The benefit of doing the right thing. Don't be ridiculous. No one does anything without wanting something in return. Do you? Victoria paused, clearly at a loss for words. That doesn't matter. What matters is that this situation is affecting our social life. People are talking, asking questions. Some have even hinted that you have hidden children. And you care more about what others think than the well-being of a child? I care about our reputation, our business, our future. What future, Victoria? What life do we really have? When was the last time we talked about anything other than money or social status? I can't believe you're questioning our marriage over some street girl. She's not a street girl. She's a smart, polite, and caring child who's been through hardships. Whatever she is, she can't stay here. Either she leaves or I do. Michael looked at his wife for a long moment. Part of him knew she was bluffing. Victoria wouldn't walk away from a life of luxury out of pride, but another part of him realized he didn't care if she left. Then maybe it's better if you leave. Victoria's eyes widened. She clearly hadn't expected that answer. You can't be serious. I'm completely serious. Victoria stormed out of the office, and Michael heard the front door slam minutes later. He sank into the armchair, wondering if he'd just destroyed his marriage over a girl he'd known for less than a week. But when Emma appeared at the office door with a drawing she'd made for him, Michael realized he didn't regret a thing. I drew a picture of us, she said, holding up a sheet of paper with two stick figures holding hands. This is you and this is me. Michael took the drawing and felt his eyes well up. It's beautiful, Emma. Can I put it on the fridge? You can put it wherever you want. That evening, as they were having dinner, Emma asked a question that changed everything. Michael, why have you never asked for my last name? The question caught him off guard. He really hadn't asked. What is it? Wilson. Emma Wilson. And my grandma is Ruth Wilson. The name hit Michael like lightning. Wilson. Why did it sound so familiar? And before you lived in Buffalo? Grandma said we used to live in New York City, but I was too little to remember. She said she worked in a big house taking care of a family. The pieces began falling into place in Michael's mind. A housekeeper named Ruth Wilson, a woman who recognized him at the hospital. Emma's familiar eyes. Emma, how long has it been since your grandma worked? She stopped working when I was born to take care of me. Before that, she worked in the same house for over 20 years. 20 years. Michael did the math quickly. 20 years ago, he was 18 and still living with his parents in the family mansion on the Upper East Side. Do you know the name of the family she worked for? Emma shook her head. She doesn't like to talk about it. She just said something very sad happened, and she had to leave. Michael felt a chill in his stomach. He was sure he was starting to understand the connection, but he needed more information. Emma, I need to make some calls. Can you watch TV in the living room? Sure. As soon as Emma left the kitchen, Michael called his mother, Elizabeth Thompson, who at 72 still lived in the family mansion. Mom, I need to ask you something. About 20 years ago, did you have a housekeeper named Ruth Wilson? There was a long silence on the other end. Why are you asking about that? Just answer, please. Michael, that's in the past. It doesn't matter anymore. Mom, it does matter. Did Ruth Wilson work for you? Another silence. She did. But we had to let her go. Why? That's none of your business. Mom, I'm taking care of her granddaughter. She's sick in the hospital and the girl is with me. I need to know the truth. What are you doing? Elizabeth's voice rose an octave. The truth, Mom. What happened to Ruth Wilson? Elizabeth let out a heavy sigh. She got pregnant. We couldn't keep a pregnant maid in the house. And the father of the child? It was complicated. Mom, it was your father, Michael. Or at least I thought it was. The world stopped around Michael. Could Emma be his half-sister? What do you mean, you thought? I found out she was also having an affair with the gardener. When she came to tell me she was pregnant, we didn't know who the father was. Your dad was furious, said she was trying to blackmail us. We fired her immediately. And then? We never heard from her again. We moved houses shortly after. Mum, are you sure it could be Dad's child? At the time, I thought so, but your father always denied any involvement. Michael ended the call in shock. If Emma was the daughter of Ruth's daughter, and if Ruth had an affair with his father, then Emma could be his niece. But something didn't add up. The timeline wasn't right. If Ruth had stopped working 20 years ago and Emma was 7, her mother would have been born 20 years ago and had Emma at 13. It didn't make sense. He decided to go to the hospital and confront Ruth directly. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now back to the story. At the hospital, Ruth was doing better, more alert. When she saw Michael walk into the room alone, her expression changed. Where's Emma? She's at home. Ruth, we need to talk. She sighed, as if she knew this moment would come. About what? About you working in my family's home. About you knowing me. Ruth closed her eyes. I knew you'd find out. So it's true? It's true that I worked in your parents' house, but it's not true what they must have told you. Tell me your version. Ruth took a deep breath. I worked in your family's home for 15 years. I started when you were little, around 3. I watched you grow up, become a man. You were a sweet boy, always kind to me. And you got pregnant? I did, but not by your father. By the gardener. It was James, the gardener. We'd been secretly dating for 2 years. When I found out I was pregnant, I told him first. We wanted to get married. What happened? When I told your mother, she was furious, said I was trying to tarnish the family's reputation, that I was a gold digger. She threatened to spread that the baby was your father's to ruin me. Why? Because she never liked me. Thought I was too close to the family, that you all cared too much about me. Your mother was always very jealous. And my father. Your father was always proper with me, never did anything inappropriate. But when your mother made up that story, he didn't defend me. He was afraid of the scandal. What happened to you? They fired me that same day. No rights, nothing. James was fired too. We moved to Buffalo where he had relatives. Did you get married? We did. My daughter, Emma's mother, was born healthy. But James, he had a work accident when my daughter was 5, ended up in a wheelchair. And Emma's mother, Ruth, hesitated. My daughter was troubled, very rebellious. She ran away at 16, said she was going to find the father I'd supposedly made up in New York City. She believed the story your mother had spread. Did she find my father? I never knew. She disappeared for 2 years. Then she came back pregnant with Emma, very sick. She'd gotten into drugs, bad crowds. She stayed clean during the pregnancy, but after Emma was born, she got worse. What happened to her? She passed away when Emma was 2, overdose. Michael Thompson felt his heart break. Emma had lost her mother so young and didn't even know how. Why did you come back to New York City? James passed last year. Heart attack. I was left alone with Emma, with no money, no prospects. I thought maybe if I found your family, they could help. Not for me, but for her. You came looking for my family. I did. But when I got there, I found out your parents had moved away. No one knew where. I ran out of money, had to take any job I could. Then I got sick and Emma found me. When she told me a wealthy man had helped her and mentioned the name Michael, I thought it was a coincidence. But when I saw you at the hospital, I recognized you right away. You looked just like your grandfather. Michael processed everything. Emma wasn't his niece. She was simply a girl whose fate had intertwined with his by chance. Or maybe it wasn't chance. Ruth, why didn't you tell me this before? Because I didn't want you to think I was trying to take advantage again. I didn't want you to think I planned for Emma to find you. And you didn't? Of course not. Emma went out to look for food on her own. I was delirious with fever. If I'd known, I never would have let her. Michael believed her. There was too much sincerity in her words, too much pain in her eyes. Ruth, my mother wronged you. And my father too, for not defending you. That's in the past. No, it's not. Oh, you lost 15 years of your life because of a lie, and now Emma is paying for it. Emma has nothing to do with this. She does. If you hadn't been wronged, she wouldn't be starving on the streets. Ruth began to cry. I just want her to have a better life than mine, for her to study, to have opportunities, but I can't give her that. I can. Ruth looked at him in surprise. Michael, you've already done so much. I can't accept more. It's not about accepting. It's about justice. My family owes you this. That night, Michael went home with his mind full of plans. He knew what he had to do, but he also knew it wouldn't be easy. Emma was in the living room watching cartoons, and when she saw him, she ran to hug him. How's Grandma? Better. She'll be okay. That's good. I said a prayer for her today. Michael smiled, touched by the girl's innocence. Emma, can I ask you something? Of course. If you could have anything in the world, what would it be? She thought for a moment. For Grandma to always be healthy, and for us to never go hungry again. Just that. And to go to school. Grandma always said school is important. Anything else? Emma hesitated. I'd like to have a real family. You know, with a mom, a dad, siblings, like in the movies. Michael's heart clenched. What if I told you that might be possible? How? Michael knelt in front of her. Emma, how would you feel if I wanted to be part of your family? What do you mean? If I wanted to take care of you and your grandma forever, give you everything you need, put you in school, give you a real home. Emma's eyes filled with tears. You'd really do that? I would. But it'd have to be forever, not just for a few days. What about your wife? My wife and I, we're having some problems. But that has nothing to do with you. Emma threw herself into his arms. I want that. I really do. Michael held her tight, knowing he was making the most important decision of his life. The next day, he went to see a family law attorney. He wanted to understand his options for legally caring for Emma. The attorney, Dr. Robert, listened carefully to the whole story. Well, if the grandmother agrees, you could become the girl's legal guardian. Or if she wants, you could pursue adoption. What's the difference? In guardianship, the grandmother remains the legal guardian, but you have the right to make decisions about education, health, and housing. In adoption, you'd become the girl's legal father. And if the grandmother doesn't agree, then it gets more complicated. You'd have to prove she isn't capable of caring for the child, which doesn't seem to be the case. And if she agrees, then it's relatively simple. Some paperwork, a few hearings, and that's it. Michael decided to talk to Ruth before making any legal decisions. At the hospital, she was much better, almost ready to be discharged. When Michael told her about his conversation with the lawyer, she stayed silent for a long time. Michael, are you sure about what you're doing? Raising a child is forever. I'm sure. And your wife? My wife made it clear she doesn't want Emma in our home, so I'm separating from her. You're leaving your wife because of Emma? No, I'm leaving because I realized my marriage has no love. Emma just helped me see that. Ruth sighed. I know you'll take good care of her, and I know it would be best for her, but it's so hard for me to accept someone else raising my granddaughter. Ruth, you won't lose Emma. Both of you are part of my life now. I'm offering a home to both of you. What do you mean? I want you to live with me too. Emma needs you, and I need someone to help me raise her right. You know her better than anyone. Ruth began to cry. You'd really do that? I would. In fact, I already am. I bought a new, bigger house with a room just for you and another for Emma, and a backyard where she can play. Michael, I don't know how to thank you. You don't have to, it's the right thing to do. That afternoon, when Michael got home, he found Victoria in the living room with several suitcases. I've decided to take your suggestion, she said coldly. I'm moving to my mother's apartment. Victoria, it doesn't have to be like this. We can talk. There's nothing to talk about, Michael. You made your choice. You chose some random girl over your wife. She's not just some random girl. And you're not just my wife, you're someone who should have compassion. Compassion doesn't pay the bills. We have more than enough money to help a child in need. That's the point, Michael. You don't understand. This isn't about money. It's about priorities, about commitments. My priority has always been our family, but I realized we were never really a family. Victoria looked at him with hurt. Maybe you're right. Maybe we were never what we should have been to each other. For a moment, Michael saw sadness in her eyes and felt a pang of remorse. After all, they had 5 years of history together. Victoria, we can still try. No, Michael. It's too late. You've changed, and I can't accept that change. After she left, Michael sat in the empty living room, wondering if he was doing the right thing. He was destroying his marriage, upending his entire life for a girl he'd known barely over a week. But when Emma came home from school, he'd enrolled her in a nearby private school and ran to hug him, excitedly telling him about her first day. All his doubts vanished. Michael, I made a friend. The teacher said I'm really smart and the snacks were yummy. The pure joy in her eyes was worth any sacrifice. A week later, Ruth was discharged from the hospital. Michael took her straight to the new house he'd bought in a quiet residential neighborhood. It was a single-story home with 3 bedrooms, a big backyard and a spacious kitchen. When Ruth saw it, she started crying. "It's so beautiful," she said. "Far more than I deserve." "You deserve this and much more," Michael replied. "After everything you've been through, you deserve all the comforts in the world." Emma ran through the entire house, exploring every room, shouting with joy. "Grandma, look at my room. I have a bed just for me and a desk for studying. And look at the backyard," Michael said, opening the back door. "We can plant flowers, play. Can I have a dog?" Emma asked hopefully. Michael looked at Ruth, who smiled. "I think we can consider that," he said. That night, the 3 of them had dinner together for the first time in their new home. It was a simple domestic scene, but it filled Michael's heart with a happiness he had never known before. "Michael," Emma said during dessert. "Yes? Can I call you Dad?" The question took everyone by surprise. Ruth looked worried, afraid Michael might feel pressured. "Emma, sweetheart," Ruth began. "Michael, of course you can," Michael interrupted, his voice choked up. "It would be an honor." Emma jumped from her chair and ran to hug him. "Thank you, Dad, for everything." In that moment, Michael knew he had found his true purpose in life. The following months brought big changes and adjustments. The divorce from Victoria was messy, with her trying to take half of the assets. But in the end, they reached a reasonable agreement. Michael kept the company and most of the estate, while she took some investments and the apartment. Emma adapted wonderfully to her new school. Her teachers were impressed by her intelligence and dedication. Within a few months, she had caught up with her class, despite never having had formal schooling before. Ruth, meanwhile, fully recovered from pneumonia and became an essential presence in the house. She took care of Emma while Michael was at work, but she also became a kind of advisor to him, helping him navigate the challenges of being a first-time father at 38. "She needs boundaries," Ruth would say when Michael was too lenient. "Love is important, but discipline is love too." "But she's already suffered so much," Michael argued. "That's exactly why. She needs to know there's order in the world, that there are rules. It gives her security." And Ruth was right. When Michael started being firmer about schedules and responsibilities, Emma flourished even more. She seemed to feel safer knowing what was expected of her. 6 months after Emma came into his life, Michael made an important decision. He wanted to formalize their situation legally. With Ruth's agreement, he began the adoption process. "Are you sure?" Ruth asked once more. "Adoption is forever." "Ruth, I already love that girl, as if she were my biological daughter. I want her to have all the rights any child of mine would have." "What if you remarry? If you have other children?" "Emma will always be my first daughter. Nothing will change that." The adoption process took several months, with multiple hearings and psychological evaluations. Social workers visited the house, spoke with Emma, Ruth, and Emma's teachers at school. Everyone was amazed by the girl's transformation. From a malnourished, traumatized child, she had become a healthy, confident, and happy girl. "It's rare to see such a successful adjustment," the social worker remarked, both for the child and the adoptive father. On the day of the final adoption hearing, Emma was nervous. "What if the judge says no?" she asked in the car on the way to the courthouse. "He'll say yes," Michael reassured her. "We're going to be an official family." Forever? Forever. The hearing was emotional. The judge, an older man with glasses, spoke at length with Emma, wanting to make sure she understood what was happening. "Emma, do you know what adoption means?" he asked gently. "It means Dad will be my real father, not just in my heart. And this is what you want. It's what I want most in the world. And you, Mr. Thompson, do you understand that you are assuming all the rights and responsibilities of a biological father?" "I understand and fully accept, Your Honor." "And you, Mrs. Ruth, do you agree with this adoption?" "I do. Michael is the best father Emma could ever have." The judge smiled. "Then, by the powers vested in me, I declare the adoption finalized. Emma Wilson is now officially Emma Thompson, daughter of Michael Thompson." Emma shouted with joy and ran to hug Michael. Ruth cried with emotion, and Michael felt a sense of wholeness he had never imagined possible. 2 years later, their lives had settled into a happy and productive routine. Emma, now 9 years old, was in 4th grade and one of the top students in her class. She had developed a passion for math and science and already talked about wanting to be a doctor when she grew up. "I want to help sick people, like the doctors who took care of Grandma," she explained. Ruth, now 58, had enrolled in a cooking class and discovered a natural talent. She cooked not just for the family, but had also started selling baked goods to neighbors, feeling productive and independent again. Michael had reduced his workload to spend more time with his family. His business continued to thrive, but he had learned to delegate more and prioritize what truly mattered. "Daddy," Emma said one night as he helped her with homework, "do you ever regret adopting me?" The question surprised him. "Why are you asking that?" At school, the teacher talked about families and said some kids are adopted because their biological parents can't take care of them. "So I thought, maybe you didn't want a real child." Michael set the book down and looked straight into her eyes. "Emma, you are my real child. It doesn't matter that you weren't born from me. You are the most real and most important thing in my life." "But what if you get married again and have other kids?" It was a valid concern, and Michael knew he had to be honest. "Emma, I might get married again someday, and I might have other children, but that wouldn't change how I feel about you. You'll always be my first child, my first love as a father. Promise. I promise." She smiled and went back to her homework. "Okay, but if you get married, I want to meet her first, to see if she's nice." Michael laughed. "Deal." Truthfully, Michael had started dating someone a few months earlier. Jennifer was a pediatrician at the hospital where Ruth had been treated, and they'd met during one of Emma's checkups. She was a kind, intelligent woman with a natural way with children. Jennifer had met Emma a few times casually, and the two got along well. But Michael was being careful, not wanting to rush anything. Emma and Ruth were his priorities, and any new relationship would have to fit into that reality. "She's pretty," Emma had remarked after meeting Jennifer, "and she's a doctor like I want to be. Did you like her?" "I did. She didn't try too hard to be my friend, you know. Some people do that, and it feels weird. She was just natural." That was exactly what Michael had noticed about Jennifer. She didn't try to win Emma over with gifts or over-the-top gestures. She treated her with genuine respect and warmth. 3 years after the adoption, when Emma was 10, Michael decided it was time to take a bigger step with Jennifer. But first, he wanted to have a serious talk with Emma and Ruth. "Girls," he said one Sunday afternoon as the three of them sat in the backyard, "I need to talk to you about something important." Emma stopped playing with Buddy, the golden retriever they had adopted the year before. "Is this about Jennifer?" she asked knowingly. "How did you guess?" "You act different when you talk about her, and you've been going out more lately." Ruth smiled. She had noticed it too and approved of the relationship. Jennifer was a good woman, and Michael Thompson deserved to be happy. "Yes, it's about Jennifer. I'm thinking of asking her to marry me." Emma fell silent for a moment, processing the news. What if she says yes? Then we'll be a bigger family, but nothing will change between the three of us. You two will always be my priority. Will she live here? Most likely. What do you both think? Ruth was the first to answer. I think you deserve to be happy, Michael. And Jennifer is a good woman. She'll be good for all of us. Emma thought a little longer. Can I ask her some questions before you propose? What kind of questions? Like if she wants kids, if she'll still be nice to me if she has her own, if she won't try to change the house rules. Michael was impressed by his daughter's maturity. Of course you can ask those questions. In fact, I think it's important that you do. The following weekend, Michael organized a barbecue at home and invited Jennifer. That afternoon, he discreetly watched as Emma interviewed Jennifer in the backyard. Jennifer, Emma said directly, do you want kids? Jennifer smiled, clearly understanding the weight of the question. Yes, I'd like to have kids someday. And if you do, will you still like me? Emma, I don't just like you, I love you. And that won't change if I have other kids. Love doesn't shrink when you share it. It grows. How? Think about your grandma. She loves you, right? But she also loved your mom. Loving one person didn't make her love the other any less. Emma nodded, seeming satisfied with the answer. And you won't try to change the house rules? Because Dad and Grandma already know what I like and don't like. Emma, this is your home. You, your dad, and your grandma have already built a family here. If I marry your dad, I'll be the one adjusting to your family, not the other way around. Okay then, I think you can marry my dad. Jennifer laughed, touched by the girl's seriousness. Thank you for your approval. That night, after Jennifer left, Emma gave her verdict. Dad, you can propose. I approve. Oh yeah? What were your criteria? She answered all the questions right. And most importantly, she didn't lie. Some people lie to make kids happy, but she was honest. Once again, Michael was amazed by his daughter's wisdom. What about you, Grandma Ruth? What do you think? I think you two should stop dragging your feet and just get married already. Jennifer is perfect for our family. 2 weeks later, Michael proposed to Jennifer at a fancy restaurant in downtown New York City. She said yes before he even finished asking. There's just one condition, she said, laughing and crying at the same time. What? I want Emma to be my maid of honor. I'm sure she'll be thrilled. And Emma was. When she heard the news, she screamed with joy and ran to hug them both. Now I'll have a mom, she said. Can I call you Mom, Jennifer? You can if you want, but only if you're comfortable with it. I do, I've always wanted a mom. The wedding took place 6 months later in a small ceremony at their neighborhood church. Emma, now 11, beamed in her maid of honor dress. Ruth cried through the whole service, and Michael, looking at his gathered family, his wife, his daughter, and the woman who had become a second mother to him, knew he had found true happiness. During the party, Emma gave a speech that moved everyone present. I want to thank my dad for finding me on the street that day. I was hungry, but he gave me so much more than food. He gave me a family. And now, with Jennifer, our family feels even more complete. I promise to be the best daughter in the world for both of you. There wasn't a dry eye in the room. 2 years after the wedding, Jennifer got pregnant. Emma, now 13, was thrilled at the idea of having a little brother or sister. I'll teach him everything, she said, running her hand over Jennifer's belly. I'll teach him to read, to write, to ride a bike. What if it's a girl? Jennifer asked. Then I'll teach her to be strong and independent, and I'll teach her she can be anything she wants when she grows up. The baby was born on a spring morning. It was a boy, and they named him Ethan. Emma was at the hospital when he was born and was one of the first to hold him. Hi, Ethan, she whispered to the baby. I'm your big sister. I'll take care of you forever. Michael watched the scene with tears in his eyes. That girl he'd found on the street, begging for food, was now there, holding her baby brother with all the tenderness in the world. What are you thinking about? Jennifer asked from the hospital bed. I'm thinking about how strange life is. 6 years ago, I was an empty man, focused only on work, in a loveless marriage. And now I have everything. A wife I love, 2 wonderful children, a second mother in Ruth. I have a real family. Do you regret anything? Michael thought about the question. Did he regret the messy divorce? The cruel comments some people had made about him adopting a street kid? The early financial struggles of supporting a bigger family? No, he finally said. I don't regret a thing. Every hardship was worth it. Ethan grew up in a home full of love. Emma truly became the devoted big sister she'd promised to be. She helped him with homework, taught him games, protected him from school bullies. When Ethan was 5 and Emma 18, she was accepted into medical school, fulfilling the dream she'd declared at 9. On her high school graduation day, she gave another moving speech. I want to dedicate this graduation to the 3 people who changed my life. To my dad, who found me when I was lost and gave me a family. To my mum Jennifer, who taught me that love has no limits. And to my grandma Ruth, who taught me that even in the hardest times we must never lose hope. After the ceremony, the whole family went to dinner at the same restaurant where Michael had bought Emma her first meal 12 years earlier. Do you remember this place? Michael asked. Like it was yesterday, Emma replied. I was so desperate, so scared. I never imagined that man in a suit would change my life completely. Actually, Michael said, you're the one who changed my life. How so? Emma, before I met you, I had money, success, but no purpose. You taught me what really matters in life. And what matters? Love, family, making a difference in people's lives. Ethan, now 5, listened to the whole conversation. Daddy, he said, I want to help kids when I grow up too. How do you want to help? Like you helped Emma. I want to give food to hungry people and homes to those who don't have one. Jennifer and Michael exchanged a proud glance. The values they'd tried to instill were being embraced by their children. You know, Ruth said, now 68, sometimes I think everything that happened in my life was meant to bring me here. All the hardships, all the losses. It was all worth it to see this family you've built. Grandma, Emma said, holding her hand, you've always been my example of strength and perseverance. Everything I've achieved is because you never gave up. And now you all are my reward. My granddaughter the doctor, my kind grandson, and a son and daughter-in-law who treat me like a queen. The family was complete, but the story still had a few important chapters left. When Emma was in her 3rd year of medical school, she decided to start a social project in the community where she and Ruth had lived years before. She returned to that alley between the commercial buildings, which had since been urbanized but still housed struggling families. I want to offer free checkups here, she told her father. Many of these families don't have access to doctors. That's a great idea. Do you need help? Actually, I was thinking of something bigger. What if we opened a real clinic? Small but well-equipped. Michael smiled. His daughter had inherited not only compassion, but also his entrepreneurial spirit. Let's talk to Jennifer. I bet she'll want to be part of this too. And Jennifer did. Together they opened Hope Clinic, a community health center that provided free care to low-income families. Emma interned there during college, and Jennifer volunteered on weekends. The clinic became a cornerstone of the neighborhood. Beyond medical care, they offered prevention workshops, first aid classes, and even psychological support. Daddy, Emma said one Sunday after a full day at the clinic, you know the best part of all this. What? Seeing hope return to people's eyes, just like it did for me when you helped me. You're continuing the cycle, Michael observed. You received help and now you're helping others. Exactly. And you know what else? What? I found 3 kids in the same situation I was in, fatherless with only sick grandparents to care for them. Michael smiled, already guessing where this was going. And what do you want to do? Well, our house is big, and Ethan loves having company. Emma Thompson, Jennifer said, joining the conversation. Are you suggesting we adopt more kids? I'm suggesting we give other children the same chance you gave me. Michael and Jennifer exchanged glances. It was a big decision. one that would change their whole family dynamic. But when they thought of the joy Emma had brought to their lives, "Let's meet these children," Michael finally said. And so began a new chapter for the Thompson family. They met Anna, an 8-year-old who was caring alone for her grandfather with Alzheimer's. They met Peter, a 6-year-old living with his 90-year-old great-grandmother in a crumbling house. And they met Sophie, a 9-year-old who had lost her parents in an accident and lived with an aunt who could barely support herself. Each case deeply touched the family's hearts, and each child in different ways needed urgent help. "We can't adopt all 3 at once," Michael said in a family meeting. "It would be too complicated, legally and emotionally." "Then let's take it step by step," Emma suggested. "We start with whoever is in the most urgent situation." Anna was clearly the most urgent case. Her grandfather was in the late stages of Alzheimer's and needed care an 8-year-old couldn't provide. Anna's adoption process was more complex than Emma's had been. There was more paperwork, more evaluations, but the family was prepared, and Anna adjusted surprisingly well. "It's weird not having to take care of anyone," she said in the first few weeks. "I always took care of Grandpa." "Now you can just be a kid," Jennifer explained. "You can play, study, dream about the future." "And what can I dream about?" "Anything you want." Anna thought for a moment. "I want to be a teacher, to help other kids who never got the chance to go to school." Once again, the Thompson family was moved by the wisdom and kindness of a child who had endured so much suffering. 2 years later, they adopted Peter, and 3 years after him, Sophie. The house that once held 3 people was now home to 8: Michael, Jennifer, Ruth, Emma when she returned from college, Ethan, Anna, Peter, and Sophie. It was a noisy house, full of life, with school uniforms scattered about, books in every corner, and lively debates over who would pick the weekend movie. "Sometimes I wonder how we manage," Jennifer said one evening after helping 3 kids with different homework assignments. "The same way we managed with Emma," Michael replied, "with lots of love and patience." "And a lot of help from Grandma Ruth," Jennifer added. Ruth, now 72, had become the family's official matriarch. She coordinated schedules, cooked for their small army, and offered wise advice whenever someone was going through a tough time. "I never imagined I'd have such a big family," she said one night, looking at the dinner table full of voices and laughter. "And you never imagined you'd be a grandmother to 5 grandchildren," Michael added. "Actually 6, Emma said, walking into the kitchen with a mysterious smile. "6? How?" "Well, Robert and I have been dating for 2 years, and—" "Emma!" Jennifer gasped. "Are you pregnant?" "No," Emma laughed, "but we're thinking about getting married, and he wants to adopt a child too." Robert was Emma's college classmate, a serious and dedicated young man who had fallen in love not just with Emma, but with the entire Thompson family story. "He wants to follow your example," Emma explained, "to give a chance to a child who needs one. And how do you feel about that?" "I think I've found the right man. Someone who understands that family isn't just about blood, it's about love and dedication." Emma and Robert's wedding took place 2 years later, in an even bigger ceremony than Michael and Jennifer's. Now, the Thompson-Wilson family, Emma had decided to keep both last names, had a new generation. Robert truly became an integral part of the family, and a year after the wedding, he and Emma adopted Michael, a 5-year-old boy whose parents had died in a work accident. "Now we officially have 6 grandchildren," Ruth said, holding Michael in her arms. "And Hope Clinic helps dozens of families every month," Michael added proudly. The clinic had grown and become a reference in New York City. Emma, now a graduate, worked there full-time. Robert, who had specialized in pediatrics, also joined the team. And Jennifer continued volunteering whenever she could. "Dad," Ethan said one afternoon, he was now 12, "I've decided what I want to be when I grow up." "What?" "A lawyer. But not just any lawyer. I want to work with adoptions, help families like ours come together." Michael smiled. Each of his children had chosen a way to help others, inspired by their own story. Anna, now 15, really wanted to be a teacher and already tutored younger kids in the community. Peter, 13, talked about becoming an engineer to build affordable housing. Sophie, 15, wanted to be a social worker. "You've created a dynasty of people who want to change the world," Ruth observed one evening. We didn't create anything, Michael replied. We just gave them opportunities. The desire to help was already inside each of them. Just like it was inside you, Ruth smiled. All it took was a little girl to bring it out. End of story. Now tell us what you thought of this story and where you're watching from. If you have something to share with us, leave a heartfelt comment. Do you think Michael made the right choice by taking Emma in? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Thank you so much for joining me. Don't forget to leave your like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other heartwarming stories.